Hello, welcome everyone who's attending the webinar today. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Hello, welcome everyone to our Reporting Unclaimed Funds webinar. We are going to be here for about an hour, and we're just about ready to get started. I'll give it a couple more minutes. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Reporting Unclaimed Funds webinar. My name is Susie Wagner. I'm the Outreach Administrator for the Division of Unclaimed Funds. I'm going to introduce you to your speakers today. We have Amy Schellhamer, the Finance Manager for the division. We have George Gladden, the Compliance Manager for the division, and Kelly Lister, the legal counsel for the division. We are so happy you're here to join us. And now I'm going to turn it over to Kelly.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name again is Kelly Lister. I am an attorney with the Department of Commerce, and I represent the Division of Unclaimed Funds. You'll see up on the screen before you contact information for Amy, George, and myself. Also, during this presentation, you can type any questions you may have in the chat, and depending on the number of the questions, we may answer them during the presentation, but in any event, I can assure you that they will all be answered at the end of the formal presentation. We provided you here with the division's primary contact phone number and our individual emails, so in the event you have any questions going forward, do not hesitate to contact us. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. Today's agenda. So today we're going to be going over a number of different topics, all related to unclaimed funds reporting. We're going to start out with a history of unclaimed funds law, and to put it into context, it is largely a state-specific law. We're also going to we'll provide you the Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 169 references, which basically constitutes Ohio's unclaimed funds law. We're going to discuss holder record retention obligations as required by statute. We're going to talk about attorney unclaimed funds, which is a new category of unclaimed funds created by statute, effective in April of 2021. We're going to talk about dormant accounts and when they become properly reportable as unclaimed funds. We will discuss the statutory obligation to notify account owners prior to reporting the funds as unclaimed funds to the Department of Commerce. We'll be giving you a whole bunch of information regarding reporting about the do's and the don'ts and how to do that and what forms to use and the method of transmission. We are also going to discuss reporting issues that we've discovered over time that have arisen and how to address them. We're going to talk about what is called a non-report in the state of Ohio, which is a necessary report for filing to satisfy the statutory annual reporting obligation. We'll talk about the two reporting deadlines that exist. They are dependent on the type or category of unclaimed funds you're reporting, and when they are, and for what time periods they cover. We're going to talk about how to go about filing an extension to the deadline for filing your unclaimed funds report. We will also identify the consequences of not satisfying your reporting obligations. And then we are going to discuss voluntary compliance agreements and how to go about entering into them with the Department of Commerce. Finally, we'll be identifying some resources for you. And again, we'll be answering questions that you might have as a result of this presentation. Next slide, please. So, Ohio Unclaimed Funds Law. It was first enacted in December of 1967. It sets forth two reporting deadlines. First, the first unclaimed funds reporting was made by life insurance companies in May 1st of 1968. Life insurance companies have a reporting deadline of May 1st of each year, and that is for the time period ending December 31st of the prior year. So, for instance, that first report that was submitted by life insurance companies in May of 1968 was for the time period ending December 31 of 1967. The second reporting deadline is for the majority of all the other holders of unclaimed funds in the state of Ohio, and that is due November 1st. So we have a deadline that is coming up in November 1st of 2023 for the time period ending June 30 of 2023. Chapter 169, which comprises Ohio Unclaimed Funds Law, is administered by the Department of Commerce, Division of Unclaimed Funds. Currently, Cheryl Maxfield serves as our director. The administrative rules are found in Chapter 1310, Section 10 of the Ohio Administrative Code. The law of lost and forgotten money, the law of unclaimed property, has ancient roots. Just to put it into context for you, it dates back to the medieval feudal era in England, when real property was held by tenants with certain feudal obligations to the lord. If the tenant died without heirs, which was not at all uncommon in a period of time where you had plagues and which killed large groups of people in a fairly relatively short period of time, it was not at all uncommon where there would be fiefs held by families in which the entire family would be wiped out. The feudal lord would not allow some random barbarian to come in to convert the land to their use. Instead, there developed this law of what's called bona vacantia, or vacant goods, whereby the feudal lord would reclaim ownership of those lands. So the doctrine was a form of custodial escheat, which provided it was better as a matter of public policy for the property to pass down to the crown rather than to a stranger. So it was about public good, in which the feudal lord would then become the fiduciary of those lands. That still is the case with Ohio Unclaimed Funds Law. It's a public policy decision where lost and forgotten goods are reported to the state to serve as a fiduciary of their funds until they are reunited with their rightful owner. The Department of Commerce advertises annually in all 88 counties with newspapers of general circulation of all unclaimed funds that are reported into its custody. Additionally, on the division's website, the location and the recovery of those unclaimed funds is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Next slide, please. Specifically, Ohio Revised Code 169.01 defines unclaimed funds as any money, rights to money, or other intangible property where an owner has not generated activity for an extended period of time. So the term here is owner-generated activity, and that is further defined in the Administrative Code in the definitions section in 1301.10.101P, which defines owner-generated activity, which constitutes any owner-initiated or authenticated transaction. It can be in writing, it can be via email. It's correspondence from the owner to the holder. It could be in the form of simply IRS forms and tax certifications to which the owner has responded. It can be as simple as the owner accessing their account through logging on to the holder's website or via any other electronic means, whether or not the transaction is performed or completed, just so long as it can be authenticated as being initiated by the owner. Now, owner-generated activity on one account is considered as activity on all other accounts, whether linked by social security number or otherwise, and that's very important to recognize. In many instances, an owner may have multiple relationships with the same holder, and activity on one account is sufficient to prevent a finding of dormancy on any of the other owner accounts that are linked in one manner or another. However, owner-generated activity does not include, without limitation, activity such as a holder crediting dividends or posting account fees or mailing account statements. The simple non-return of mail sent by the holder to the account owner or any automatic financial or administrative actions or activity such as automatic payments are not sufficient to constitute owner-generated activity. Therefore, they're not sufficient to prevent a finding of dormancy on that account. The annual reporting obligation to review, the annual reporting obligation of a holder requires simply that the owner review their books and the holder review their books and records to identify whether the owner has initiated any owner-initiated activity on their account. This annual review of the accounts is important, even if it results in a finding that there are no dormant accounts. There is an obligation on the part of the holder to submit what is known as a none report to the Department of Commerce, and more specifically the Division of Unclaimed Funds, simply to evidence that they have reviewed their books and records and made an effort to identify any funds in which there has been no owner-generated activity. Holders are defined as any private business enterprises, public corporations, financial institutions, nonprofit organizations, and all other entities that maintain account balances or hold funds for another person or other person. So it is a broadly worded definition. Next slide, please. As a holder of unclaimed funds, as a holder of potentially reportable unclaimed funds, the administrative code, rather by both statute and the administrative code, there are record retention obligations. Holders must retain records for 5 years beyond the applicable period of dormancy. The period of dormancy for unclaimed funds is determined by the category of unclaimed funds, whether they be checks or whether they be wages. There are different dormancy periods based on when you expect that owner to have initiated activity. Obviously, the period of dormancy for wages is much less. You expect if you earn income in the form of wages, you're going to cash that check within a relatively short period of time. Whereas checking accounts or savings accounts, more particularly, there may not be regular activity on those accounts for a greater period of time. So the retained records that we're talking about here have to be maintained for 5 years plus that relevant period of dormancy. That means that that's 5 years plus that period of dormancy. However, I want to point something very important to you. So if the records are not available for the period of records review, the examination period is 10 reporting cycles after an audit or a notice of involuntary examination is commenced. Built into our code are periods of are methods of estimation that are readily available to you to view in our administrative code found in 1301-10304. And in the event that there's not an agreement to either of those two methods of estimation, it can be met by mutual agreement between the division and the holder as to how to estimate any period for which there are no records available. The retained records here, as they're identified here on the slide before you, include a copy of the unclaimed funds that you have reported, any signed or returned notices. So this is when you've reached out to an owner of unclaimed funds and to obtain there's been a period in which there's been no owner activity, and prior to reporting the funds, you're statutorily obligated to reach out to them one last time, at least 30 days prior to reporting them to Commerce, to ask them to respond and indicate whether they have a continuing interest in the funds. The division has what's called an OUF-8 form, which is compliant with your statutory obligations, that's readily available to you and accessible through our website, to send out a notice to the reported owner, to the owner of the funds, asking them to respond and indicate a continuing interest in those unclaimed funds. In the event that you've done that, here, retained records would include evidence that you've reached out to the owner and that they have indicated to you they have a continuing interest in the account that they hold with you. Additional records to include are aggregate detail. What is meant by that is for those funds that are a value of $50 or less, you can report them in aggregate, which doesn't require that you provide detailed information. However, if you have aggregate detail available, we strongly encourage you to maintain records of that, because obviously that information is helpful to the division in reuniting those funds with their rightful owner. If you've reached out to an owner and it's been returned as undeliverable, those records would be records that you would maintain for a period of 5 years plus the applicable period of dormancy. Additionally, all supporting research and documentation that you use to prepare your unclaimed funds report, maintain those records for a period of 5 years plus the applicable period of dormancy. Next slide, please. Lastly, I want to talk with you about a new category of unclaimed funds that recently came into being by a statute. It's more specifically 169.052. It was effective in April of 2021. It was a new law which created a new category of unclaimed funds known as attorney unclaimed funds. By statute, the division uses funds that fall within this new category of unclaimed funds, these attorney unclaimed funds, and loans them to the Ohio Access to Justice Foundation to support civil legal aid and access to justice. The Ohio Access to Justice Foundation is the largest funder of civil legal aid in the state of Ohio. Attorney unclaimed funds consist of unclaimed IOLTA account funds held by attorneys pursuant to 470509 of the revised code. Additionally, it's comprised of unclaimed IOTA funds. These are typically real estate escrow funds, non-directed escrow funds held by title companies, and unclaimed residual settlement funds, whether for named or unnamed plaintiffs. These funds are reported under a unique property code, TR 88, and they are used by the Access to Justice Foundation until they're recovered by their rightful owners, at which time they are then returned to the Division of Unclaimed Funds. And now I'm going to turn over the presentation to George Gladden, our Compliance Manager, who can tell you everything you need to know about unclaimed funds reporting.
Thank you, Kelly. So the first thing that I would recommend is to visit our website, unclaimedfunds.ohio.gov. There's a reporting section on the sidebar to the left, and it's a 4-step process, and I'll be stepping you through the first 2 of those steps, and Amy Schellhammer is going to help me out with the second or the last 2. So the first thing to know is that on the next slide, that all businesses that are located in Ohio or doing business in Ohio, organizations that are located or doing business in Ohio, are required to file a report with the Ohio Division of Unclaimed Funds annually, with the exception of 501c3 hospitals and political subdivisions. All other businesses are required to file. Even if you have no unclaimed funds to report, you're required to file what Kelly mentioned was a none report. Sometimes we call it a negative report or a 0 report. So the first thing that you have to do is to review your accounts to see if you have anything dormant. And so dormancy is the maximum amount of time that you can hold a particular item without any communication or activity from the owner of the money or the funds or that particular item before they become reportable. So most items that you will encounter will probably have a 3-year dormancy period, a 1-year dormancy period, or a 5-year dormancy period. We often get the question, can you report early? Yes, you can, so long as you follow the due diligence mailing guidelines that I will be talking about in a little bit. And that's given under Ohio Revised Code 169.11. Once you do complete your report and then remit those funds to us, you're relieved from liability, and that's given under Ohio Revised Code 169.07. So if you are sued over those funds, the law does provide some protection to you regarding that. And there are consequences for not filing, and I will talk a little bit more about that, but the state may assess penalties and interest, and it's given under Ohio Revised Code 169.12 and Ohio Revised Code 169.99. So the first step on the next slide is to identify dormant accounts. We have some resources on our website, including a document, how to do a self-examination of your accounts, to go through and to see if you have anything dormant. So one place to look would be outstanding checklist on your bank reconciliations. Like I mentioned, some checks have a 3-year dormancy period, like employee reimbursement checks or credit refund checks. Or paychecks or commission checks have a 1-year dormancy. So the first step would be to take a look at that. You should also take a look at an aging of accounts receivable report to see if you're holding any customer or client credits that are 3 years or older. So to go through and identify all of those items that might be dormant. Once you identify those items, you should go through and research the dormant accounts to determine if any of those can be eliminated. For example, some of the checks that I mentioned, they may have cleared the bank or they may have been voided. As an example, for kinds of dormant accounts, let's take a look at a law firm on the next slide. So with law firms, they could be holding escrow and trust funds or wages. They may have customer credits or refunds. They may be dealing with mineral interests or royalties. And if you would like to know where to find definitions of those kinds of unclaimed funds, you can find them in Ohio Revised Code 169.01 and 169.02. In this case, if you're not familiar, fiduciaries, they hold money on behalf of others, and it's identified there. For example, interest on trust accounts, interest on lawyers' trust accounts, or other escrow type funds. Those have a 3-year dormancy period. And on the next slide, I mentioned some items have a 1-year dormancy period. Next slide, please. 1-year dormancy period. So wages, anything $50 or more, would potentially be reportable. Now, that's the only time the dollar amount comes into play in this way. Everything else, even if it's a penny, once it becomes dormant, would be reportable as an unclaimed fund. Wages and payroll, if it's less than 50, there's an exemption there. Royalties, payments to landowners, monies owed under profit sharing plans all have a 1-year dormancy. Commission checks have a 1-year dormancy as well. We have a list of all of the different types of unclaimed funds and their dormancy periods on our website. If you go to identify inactive accounts on our website, there's a link there to all of those dormancy periods. So that's the first step. And like I said, I recommend looking after July 1st for those items, but really you can check throughout the year. All right, if we go to the next slide. So the next step after that is to do a due diligence mailing where you try to get in touch with the owner of the money. It's required by law under Ohio Revised Code 169.03 that you're required to send out a notice of unclaimed funds or an equivalent letter to items $50 or more. Anything less than $50, you're not required to do the mailing. Those items would just be reportable as unclaimed funds. You may do the mailing for those items if you choose. But what you do is you send out Form OUF-8, which you can find on our website, or you can send out an equivalent letter to the last known address of the owner or the owners of the money with a self-addressed stamped envelope. Anything $50 to up to $1,000 may be sent first class mail. Anything $1,000 or more, you're required to send out certified mail with a return receipt requested, and you can charge up to $20 against the account to pay for the actual cost of the mailing, unless you have a bad address, in which case there won't be anybody there to sign for it. And the way you document that is to show that you've sent them a first class notice and they haven't responded after 30 days, or if it comes back undeliverable, and or you've done a search of the available public records and you cannot determine their current address. So long as you can show 2 out of the 3, you're not required to send it out certified mail. We often get a lot of questions on that. So if you do have questions, just as a reminder, please drop those into our Q&A and we will get those answered for you. And so with the due diligence mailing, you're required to give them 30 days to respond. If the owner of the money signs off on the form and returns it to you, then that item is not unclaimed, and you can either issue a refund check or hold that money on account for up to 3 more years. Say, for example, if it's a customer credit or a patient credit, if you're a medical practice, before it becomes dormant again without any activity, and then you would need to do another mailing. We get a lot of questions about if we accept just phone calls or emails. It depends on the type of owner activity. If they're logging into an account, that would reset the dormancy. But as far as the due diligence mailing, we really do need a signature. We're looking at updating the law to allow for electronic signatures, but as it is right now, we do need a signature on a form or an equivalent letter for that to count. So all of that needs to be done prior to reporting. And I'm going to hand it off to Amy Shellhammer, and she's going to tell you how to create an unclaimed funds report.
Thank you. We basically have 2 options to submit an unclaimed funds report based upon how you plan to pay for the funds. The first option, which is most frequently used, is through the Ohio Business Gateway. This allows you to do ACH debit transfers or pay via credit card. We do not accept wires. We do not give our account information out, and we do not accept ACH credit. So ACH debit, sometimes your institution requires you to have a debit blocker number. We do have that number. It should be on a pop-up on the Ohio Business Gateway screen, but if you don't have it, it's 1-311-409-347. You can email me if you need to know about it. Also, so if you don't know if your business or financial institution needs that information, it's not a bad idea to provide it ahead of time. At the time that you do submit the payment, you're also submitting the report. OBG acts as a transfer agent to us. They don't open the report. They don't look it over. They have no idea basically what's in it. They just basically transfer it to us. So if there's a problem with the report, we will reach out to you regarding that. You can use OUF 1 and 2 forms and create PDF versions and upload those on the Ohio Business Gateway. Some people use software such as UP Exchange or HRS Pro to create a NAPA file. You can use that to upload it. And I believe we had a CSV template file that shows you the detail we need. And you can upload that as well. So on our website, we do have instructions on how to report funds through the OBG and adding a report on the OBG, the Ohio Business Gateway, sorry. Next slide. The second option we have is we have our own secured website provided where you can upload your report. When you do that, you do need to send a payment via check. When you upload something to our website, you should get a response that says your report has been uploaded. Please keep in mind, oh, there's an example of our website. Thank you. Go ahead, Susie. There's an example of our website. It also tells you you need to submit the payment to 77 South High Street, 20th floor, Columbus, Ohio, 43215. The check is made payable to us. Sometimes we get checks that are made out to the original owner. No, we can't cash those. Those will be returned to you and you'll have to reissue a payment to us. So on that, you can, in the memo of the check, please put the FEIN number on the memo of the check. That way we know where this report goes to. It's not oftentimes, if the company is rather large, they'll have somebody submitting the report and some other location actually issuing the check. So we need to match those up. So, okay. Go ahead to the next one. On our website, you will see that we do ask for the FEIN number and social security number. We'll ask for the business name, the phone number. Please fill that in. That is something that we need. So if you have a question, we'll email it out to you. Reporting issues that we have. I've alluded to these already. Sometimes since we get the files through OBG, there's not really a checks and balances until we open the report. When we start processing the report, sometimes the charge is different. Sometimes the ACH payment is different from the data that you have given us. So we'll have that issue. So double check it before you submit it. Also, sometimes the full owner detail. We can only give out to the customer, give to the proper customer if we have this information. So it becomes very challenging if you say, I have John Smith, but you don't give us an address or birth date or social security number. If you have that information, you are supposed to give it to us. That way we can give it to the right person. And that's all our goal is. We want to make sure the right person gets the funds. The nature of funds code is sometimes missing. It helps us know what these funds were for. Sometimes the owner doesn't even remember. And this also helps our claim department to determine what information we need from the owner to validate that this is their funds, whether it be a cashier's check. We would need the actual cashier's check. If it's something where an estate is involved or something like that, that information requires different documentation. Ownership code, again, this is also helpful if there's joint owners, if there's a survivorship on the account. This is information that's very helpful in case it has to be given to heirs. So that's important. Company FEIN number or their contact information. These are important as well in case there's a question regarding the report or the payment. If the payment and the report are not completed in full and it's not able to be processed, we need to be able to reach out to somebody and say, hey, look, your compliance is not met yet. So that's the reason we're asking for this information. Then we have sometimes the owner details or the details just not in the right column. Sometimes they're giving me the account number in the description field, or the check number is not in the check number field. We do have fields for this in the NAPA file, so it helps to have it in the right format or right column as well. So this is very helpful. Otherwise, again, you might hear from us because we can't match it up maybe even at the claim stage where they're giving us a different number than what you've submitted to us, and here it ended up being they're giving us an account number and not a check number or vice versa, something like that. So next one. Then we have reports that are uploaded on numerous places. Sometimes they're mailed into us. Sometimes they're uploaded to UP Exchange if you use that site. Also, they're put on the Ohio Business Gateway. Please limit where you're putting them because we'll be looking for a check with each one that you're giving out until we determine that they are in fact duplicates. This saves a lot of time and a lot of aggravation or even contact back to you. The lag time between the report submission and the payment. We have UP Exchange that used to keep reports for an extended period of time. They have since changed their policy. They only keep it for 30 days. And likewise, if we get something on our website, we're going to be looking for a report in a reasonable amount of time. I've recently received some that I've received a payment for, and a file was uploaded 2 years ago. That's not timely. There's quite a difference between that. So I'll have to reach out and get that report for them. The check needs to be payable to us. I alluded to this earlier that sometimes we get it in the owner's name. You'll find we'll return that payment to you and ask you for a replacement check. Be mindful though, the complete report, that's the date that it's submitted. So if it's beyond the November 1st date, that's late. So you might want to file an extension if you think it's going to be, the check is going to be delayed or something like that. So keep that in mind. Also, we have bad email addresses being given to us at times. Please make sure that you review that. It's the easiest way. Most people like to be contacted. They like it have it in writing. If you provide us with that, that's the quickest way we can get you the info or contact you regarding misinformation or something like that. Okay. Next slide. Non-reports. I believe George has already stated this. Everybody who conducts business in the state of Ohio has to file a report, and even if it ends up being a non-report. So on the Ohio Business Gateway, which is very easy once you have it set up, there you can click and submit it through the gateway. We do have instructions. If you find that unclaimed funds is not on your dashboard, please let us know that. We can, or you can view the video that's out on our website to add it to your website or dashboard. Next one. I'll hand this off to George to discuss the reporting deadlines. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Amy. So there are 2 reporting deadlines, and the first is May 1st, and that's for life insurance companies only. So reports are due by May 1st for anything dormant as of December 31st. So that means that if there was something with a 1-year dormancy, if it was the report for this past year, in May of 2023, he'd be looking for any checks older or that item older than May 1st of 2022. All other businesses, the deadline is by November 1st, and so that'll be coming up here in a month and a half. And that's for anything dormant as of June 30th. So say, for instance, there was something with a 1-year dormancy, you would be looking for anything older than June 30th of 2022. Right, so if you are approaching that reporting deadline and you find that you need more time and you'd like to file an extension, on the next slide, you'll see that we do have that as an option. You can request extensions 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or 120 days. And you can go to our website and you can see that there's the link there. You can also, whenever you go on our website, unclaimedfunds.ohio.gov, go into the reporting section, and when you go into create report, there is a link that would allow you to request the extension. You're only allowed to request 1 extension per year. And so if you're not sure if you need an extension or how long you would need for the extension, we recommend you go ahead and request the extension. And request 120 days. So long as you request that by the due date for the report, you'll get the extension automatically. All right. Now, I mentioned fines and penalties before. So there are consequences if you don't file your unclaimed fund report. It is the law. You may be selected for an involuntary audit, and that's under Ohio Revised Code 169.03, Section G, Section 1. In which case we would have one of our field auditors go through and identify any unclaimed funds that you need to report and step you through that process. You also may be we also use or work with contract auditors that do the same thing. If you receive a letter from our office telling you that you've been selected for an audit, it's the real deal, and you have to go through it. It's the law. Now, you also may be assessed. I mentioned those fines and penalties. The state may assess 2 civil penalties of $100 each per day and 1% interest on the funds that should have been reported, up to $500 each day for a report that is not filed. And if you do the math, that money can rack up pretty quickly. So if you haven't reported, and it's very possible that many of you, this is the first time you've ever heard about unclaimed funds, or if you've underreported, or if you want to get caught up, we can definitely help you with that. We have a voluntary compliance agreement program. If you go to the next slide, it's a program in which you can enter into an agreement with the state of Ohio. And one of the requirements is that you have not been selected for an audit. So if you receive that audit letter, you can't go into the program. However, if you have not, then you would have to have something to report. And what you do is agree to report a certain amount or all of your unclaimed funds over a specific time period. We request the last 10 years. Once you enter into that agreement and the state signs off on that, you are relieved from any fines and penalties. And we also take that into consideration if you ever are selected for an audit. Our audits are typically selected at random. So if you're interested, I highly recommend that you check it out on our website, unclaimedfunds.ohio.gov. Go to the reporting section, and there is a section for voluntary compliance agreements. I can download the information, download the agreement. You do have to know how much you're reporting first, and you do have to do the due diligence mailing prior to sending us the agreement. But once you do, and it's fully executed and signed by our division legal and our superintendent, then you have 60 days to report. And what you do, then that catches you up, and then you're able to report that. And like I said, it relieves you of those fines and penalties. We also have other reporting resources. If you go to the next slide. All right, on our website, I'll go ahead and just, if you haven't heard me say it enough, unclaimedfunds.ohio.gov. Go to the reporting section. There's a link to go to reporting forms and resources. We have all kinds of videos. That's where you'll be able to find this webinar or potentially the forms or guides that we've mentioned throughout. If you're looking for reporting forms, there was a question out there that I saw if you can mail it in. Yes, you are still able to mail it in. However, over the next couple of years, we're going to be going with electronic reporting. I'm going to hand it off to Amy before I steal any more of her thunder. All right.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it. There is a holder reimbursement form out there. I wanted to bring this to your attention as well. Sometimes you discover in the course of, even if it's the next year that you're doing your holder reporting, that you've included something twice or misreported a prior year. Let us know as soon as you can. That way, if it's already been paid out, unfortunately, or refunded, we can only give what we're notified of. So the sooner you tell us that there's an amendment or you have a duplication out there and you need to amend the report, we can look and try to hold the report and make sure that somebody can't collect on it. So that's that holder reimbursement form. And that's handled, it's first filed to us or we're notified, but it's really handled by our claims department. So we might handle the initial part of it, and then we hand it off to the claims area to do the completion of filing your claim. And then, as you can see, there's other forms out there that I suggest you take a look at and see if you can use those. The next slide, please. In addition to those resources, we have, of course, the website. There's missingmoney.com to look up if you have funds. I tell people to look every year. Because we get reports all the time, not just during the deadline. Sometimes they'll come across funds from another source, or there will be a merger and there'll be a new business that comes in and they'll have to report those funds as well. So look daily. I've referred to the Ohio Business Gateway. That's gateway.ohio.gov. That's another way to file your report. And of course, I alluded to the NAPA forms. There is an unclaimed.org, and that's the National Association of Unclaimed Property Administrators. They can discuss what the NAPA format is in case you want to create something like that in-house. I will tell you there's two things that I didn't miss prior, and I'm sorry about that. When you do upload a report on, say, the Ohio Business Gateway, they themselves have an extension. They only allow about 20 characters for your file name. So look that over. On our website, we'll take a longer name. However, we don't take special characters. So from the get-go, I'll tell you, just try to make sure that your file name doesn't have special characters and it's only 20 characters in length. So that might help you if you get frustrated trying to upload and it won't tell you why. Okay, next slide. So the future of reporting. We have listened to the responses that feedback that you have given us over the years. We will be providing options for reporting in the near future as we look into our technology solutions. So keep in mind, we're trying to go to paperless, or electronic reporting. So as soon as you can try to get that in place, the better off you'll be. But note, as we get more information, we will let you know. So stay tuned. And the last slide, we have contact information again that we provided at the very beginning. It gives the email addresses and our main number, telephone number, should you have any more questions. Susie?
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, everyone. We are going to answer some more questions right now. And then if you want to hang on, we still have about 15 minutes left in the hour. We're going to answer some more questions. And then I noticed several folks were asking questions of where they can find things. And so I thought, let's just pull up the website and show them exactly where to go and where some of these resources are. So I'm just going to pick some questions. So Amy, George, Kelly, whoever is the appropriate person to answer. We've had some really great questions so far today. Let's see. Does the report and payment need to be received by November 1st or sent by November 1st?
Should be received.
Go ahead, Amy.
Okay. It should be received.
Okay, great. We have many clients, 80 plus, that refuse to create their own business gateway, or they aren't computer savvy. We've heard this one before. How do we file none reports for those people? Do we, as the accountants, need to create gateways for each client to get you these none reports?
Yes. Right now, well, there are a couple of different ways to file, but we are encouraging all companies, all holders to file through the Ohio Business Gateway. If they are unable to file through the Ohio Business Gateway, like they do not have internet, or if they do not have a computer, we do have forms that are available. But as far as clients, you should go ahead and set those up to file. Many of them will probably already have a gateway account, but it's pretty simple to set up an Ohio ID and a gateway account. Sometimes it does take a little bit of time though, but we are encouraging everybody to do that. If you have specific cases where your clients are not able to, you can contact me and we'll address those on a case-by-case basis.
And remember, you can always file the extensions. The extension portal is out there. If you think it's going to be late, you think something needs to be addressed first, please utilize that.
Okay. B2B exemptions, do those extend to nonprofits and government entities?
That would be a question for me. Government entities, they are exempt from the definition of unclaimed funds. Any unclaimed funds that are due and reportable to a government entity is exempt, and those are funds that are held by that government entity who, in the course of their governmental function, acquires those unclaimed funds there to hold them in trust for a period of 5 years at a minimum. And then with respect to nonprofits, yes, they are considered just like any other holder. They have the ability to, in certain circumstances, to claim funds as exempt under the B2B exemption.
Okay. Is it standard practice across all reporting states to allow for 30 days after the required due diligence mailing before creating or filing a report? Or does each state have different rules surrounding how early before the deadline holders can report? That's a great question.
If I could take that one, unclaimed funds law is largely state-made law, so there are variances in the period of time prior to reporting and remitting unclaimed funds to the respective state unclaimed funds agency, that the due diligence must be completed. So with respect to unclaimed funds, you very much have to look at the last known address of the reported owner, and it would be to that state that those funds would be reportable, and that law would govern the manner and methodology and the rules by which those unclaimed funds are reported. But uniformly in the state of Ohio, at least 30 days in advance of reporting unclaimed funds, you must make one last attempt to communicate with the owner and either obtain their acknowledgement that they have a continuing interest in the unclaimed funds, or in the absence of that, report them to the Department of Commerce Division of Unclaimed Funds.
Okay. If a parent company has several subsidiaries, can the parent company file on behalf of all the other subsidiaries, or do they need to each file?
They can file on behalf of all the subsidiaries. Usually the parent company will send us their report and say what the list of subsidiaries they're reporting for, and we'll link the accounts if they were reporting separately in the past.
Okay. If you have filed a zero for an entity for 3+ years, is it still necessary to file a zero or a none report?
Yes, so long as you are located in Ohio or doing business in Ohio, then you must still continue to report annually.
I am a financial institution. Are there any type of accounts exempt from reporting?
Yes, so the exemptions to reporting, so I mentioned the payroll exemption, so any payroll under $50. There's the business-to-business exemption that Kelly mentioned. That's for the wholesale trade of tangible goods and services between the company, the business, and another business. Their gift cards are exempt, like retail gift cards, gift certificates. Kelly, what am I missing?
In Revised Code Section 16901, we define unclaimed funds, and George has already enumerated some of the exceptions from that definition. Earlier, I had talked about unclaimed funds not including money received or collected by any public officials, for any public money that's received or collected under color of office by another government agency is not considered reportable unclaimed funds. Other than that, what George was talking about in 16901 is the B2B exemption we've already talked about, which if you have any questions of that, I strongly encourage you to contact the division, because I think many holders believe that any payment from a business to a business is exempt, and the division is not of that opinion. This is for wholesale trade. That means for business transactions that are used to create the product or to create the service, not for every transaction between a business to business. That's not sufficient to make you eligible to claim that exemption. So please don't contact again the division if you need additional or more specific fact-specific guidance as to whether the exemption applies to the transaction that you are considering. Additionally, there's exemptions made for retail gift certificates and merchandise credit cards, and there are certain conditions to that are further delineated in the section that I referred to earlier, Revised Code Section 169.01.
What if the account with the credit is deceased?
If the account holder is deceased, it is still the owner would be the estate of that reported, of the identified unclaimed funds holder. And note this too, for purposes of owner generated activity, which I spoke about earlier, activity by the executor or administrator of their estate on the account of the decedent following their death would constitute owner generated activity, so as to prevent a finding of dormancy of those on those accounts. But in those instances, which is not at all uncommon, that a deceased property owner passes away and the heirs or the legatees are unaware of all of their assets and their property does become reportable, the proper claimant then would be the estate of the decedent.
Okay. We have a question here about a VCA, the Voluntary Compliance Agreement, which I do want to share. We are going to be doing a specialized webinar next month on just the topic of Voluntary Compliance Agreement. So if that's something of interest to you, we'll be posting on our website the details as well as sharing it via email. So we have one question. If a company has previously entered a VCA, can they request it again because they have fallen behind?
Well, one of the conditions of a voluntary compliance agreement is an acknowledgement that you have going forward after you've entered into the voluntary compliance agreement to satisfy your annual reporting obligation.
Okay. Let's see. If the dormant account is an estate or trust account and the account lists a non-customer trustee or executor, care of like a law office, do we send the letter of dormancy to the law office and expect the law office to then contact the non-customer trustee or executor?
I don't think we can give you an answer without looking at some additional documentation to get a better idea about what we're speaking in regards to. You know, one thing I will say with unclaimed funds reporting, it is largely, and it is recognized that it is largely dependent on the quality and the content of the holder's records, as far as the ownership and the appropriate contact information. And so, again, that would be, I think, a very specific question. It would depend on the underlying documentation that you have, identifying who the appropriate contact person is in combination with the kind of property that we're talking about. In the absence of clear definition, you're always encouraged to send it to both and hope that, you know, that obviously if you're covering all your bases in that respect, if you still have owner identifying information about contact information, if you have the trustee's contact information, and you have a law office, sending it all to all three would be the advisable way to go, because in that way, I think you're increasing the likelihood of obtaining a response.
Okay. George or Amy, did you see any other questions that we wanted to try to make sure we get to?
I see one here that we often get. And the question is, do you have a link to the video or instructions on how to add unclaimed funds none report to my dashboard? I don't think we have a video for that yet, but we do have instructions.
Yes.
Do we have
a video. Yes, we do.
Oh,
it's
great.
on our website.
Thank you, Susie. So yes, it's on our website as well as instructions. So it's pretty simple to go in, but it's kind of hidden. Do you have the website, Susie?
Yes, I am
All right.
pulling it up right now. 1 second. Okay, can everybody see that? Hopefully. Okay, I have the website showing. This is our homepage for the Division of Unclaimed Funds. For reporting, you're just going to go to Report Funds on the left-hand side here. That is going to bring up the 4 easy steps. So we have 4 easy steps to filing and reporting your unclaimed funds. The first, George talked about these in depth, identifying your accounts and sending the letter. And then Amy spoke about creating the report and sending it to us. So let's just go into, when you click identify inactive accounts, it brings up a screen with more information on those inactive accounts. You can launch this to showcase the self-examination instructions. So this gives you a lot more information. There is back to the website, also Ohio dormancy table, which I think is very helpful. A lot of folks are referencing this for the proper code to utilize. So that's handy. And then if we look at sending letters to the owners, that's step 2. This also gives you more information. We're looking for those funds over $50 again to send those letters to those owners. And when you click the launch button, it gives you the document that has all of the instructions on that letter, as well as a template letter for you to utilize when you're sending that information. Super helpful. Now, here's kind of probably most of everybody's questions. When you're creating a report on our website, we have several resources here. So if you're going to recreate, you first need to decide, how do you want to send us the dollars? Are you going to pay with that ACH debit transfer or credit card? Are you going to pay via check? So depending on which option you choose, these are your 2 links of where to go to file those reports. And then this is the link to the none report if you have none to report. This is a link to the webinar that we did the last earlier this year in April. So similar information as we're giving here today. This is the video that everybody needs and wants. So when you're filing on Ohio Business Gateway, this instructional video shows you how to add that report to your dashboard. So once you log into Ohio Business Gateway, we get lots of questions on this, if I do believe so, right, George and Amy, where people are like, where do I get this report and how do I add it? This video shows you exactly what to do step by step on the screen. And then this video shows you how to file that report on Ohio Business Gateway step by step. So you can pause it and go at your own pace. This is our voluntary compliance agreement page that gives you all the information and details on that agreement, how you can submit it, and kind of everything you need to know about that agreement is right there. This is a link right to the file extension if you need to extend, when you can file your report and send it to us. This takes you directly to a page where you fill out the information so we know that you want to file that extension. So all of this is right here, just under create a report, under the report funds on our website. Then we have submitting that report to us. So again, you have a few options, whether you do that through Ohio Business Gateway or right on our website. The business page, the upload page on our website is linked. So if you want to file your report and don't want to use Ohio Business Gateway, that is an option, and we highly encourage you. You do need to file your report, not just with the PDF, but submit it right here on this webpage. And then go ahead and make sure you include all of your information on your check when you send it to us. That FEIN, as Amy mentioned, a lot of folks forget that as they are sending the check. And we're trying to match these checks with the reports. So help us out to make sure that we get all the information and we can easily put everything together. Is there anything else we want to showcase?
Susie, one of the questions that I know was asked is, if I have the aggregate information, can I still include it on the report? Yes, you can. It's not required, but yes, you very much can. That way, we don't have to reach back out to you regarding if it was in aggregate. So, yeah.
And
thank you.
Susie, to answer your question, I think one thing we don't want to end without telling holders the importance of, obviously we share a common mission, that is to reunite funds with their rightful owners. Unclaimed funds is all about these funds will be held in trust, and they will accrue interest during the entire time that they're held in in the trust funds created by Operation 16905 of the revised code. Ohio Unclaimed Funds Law is in Chapter 169. But it's important that they recognize that upon filing these unclaimed funds, they're relieved of their record-keeping obligations. Then it becomes on the responsibility of the Department of Commerce to maintain records regarding these properties and to be undertaking efforts to reunite the funds. It relieves them of that record-keeping responsibility and from liabilities arising out of any claim related to the transfer of the report and remission of these dormant funds to the Department of Commerce. And if anyone has any additional questions, please don't hesitate to use my contact information. I'm happy if you have any follow-up questions.
Yes, I do see we have gotten some more questions in. So if we didn't get to your question today, please know we will review all of our questions and put together an FAQ for this webinar that we will then post on our website, as well as a replay of this webinar will be available on our website. And you can always reach out, just like Kelly said, and email us any specific questions that you have. Sometimes there are specific situations that we do need to know more information on before we can answer you. So with that, we want to thank you for your time today. Thank you, everyone, for learning more about reporting your unclaimed funds. And also, don't forget to go and search the website to see if you have any funds to claim. While you're here, go ahead and go to missingmoney.com, which is the first step in finding out if you or your business has any funds to claim. So there's not just reporting, we also are working with claimants as well. So I think that is it for today. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you. Have a great day.